anyways. So I just want to share a little bit about what the Lord's been doing the last few months, or actually, in this case, maybe the last year, but I'll focus mostly on the last few months since my last open house, which was a year ago. It's been a very exciting season, and there's also been some challenges as well. So I think you are probably all used to this as well, but there's always changes happening, right, in our life, in our work, in our families, and that's certainly true for me. So I'll just be showing some pictures here as I speak. This is last summer. I got to go to the Olympics in Paris, where we did a story on a man who was a steeplechase Olympic hopeful. He has a family member that's an Olympic athlete, and a family member who's a coach. And I was there to tell his story, to tell the greater picture of what God was doing at the Olympics. It was very, very exciting to do that. This happens to be my last story with Cru Storylines, because about 4 or 5 months ago, our leadership decided to stop the production of Cru Storylines. And so it's a bittersweet thing for me. It's honestly been a pretty challenging season the last few months. Just trying to balance lament with, hope on what the Lord has planned, and also to trust the decisions of my corporate leadership. I work for a very large organization, and not every decision that's made is something I absolutely agree with, as I'm sure you can relate to that. Paul, sorry, can you move this way? Because you're blocking my videographer. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So it's been an interesting last few months. There's definitely been a lament element of it, because when I joined Cru staff 23 years ago as a photojournalist, and that's what I've been the pleasure of doing, first with Worldwide Challenge magazine, the printed magazine, and then the last 8 years with Digital Storylines. And this decision was made to stop this. And me and my team, a photo team, and the creative team, the writers, we didn't really have any say in that. So we're all just trying to figure out, what does that mean for us internally, and how do we continue to communicate great stories, But for me personally, it's a challenge, because I don't, at least right now, I'm not able to do the real long-form journalism storytelling that I've loved doing so much. And so there's a grief and a lament in that, right? But I'm also very excited, because the Lord has just continued to open new doors for me in different directions and areas that I maybe haven't done as much in the past. So it's like all in life, trying to balance that, gratitude and grief, right, and things, and hold on to things loosely. And then also internally, I'm trying to make change as well. I'm kind of a little cog in a big wheel, but just trying to, be a voice professionally that we need to communicate stories to our ministry partners and things like that. So there's a lot of internal dialogue going on, and sometimes I feel like I'm hitting my head up against a wall, but and then I also have to be careful that I don't get in trouble, because that's happened to me a couple times in the last few years, so that I step on the wrong toes or push a little too hard or something. So just balancing that, but I appreciate your prayers. But in all that, God's calling and mission has not changed, which is to make Christ known, make his son Christ known to every tribe, tongue, and nation, or the way that I say it is, in my neighborhood, our nation, and the nation. That's God's mission. And my mission, I've been using this analogy. We've been watching a lot of football around here. My family's my parents are from Iowa, so we've watched Iowa play 2 weekends in a row and win 2 weekends in a row. They beat Penn State this weekend, which was fun. But I'm kind of like a running back for Christ, My goal is to move the mission forward a yard, 5 yards, 10 yards, maybe occasionally get a touchdown for Christ's mission in this earth, So that's kind of my analogy is. And photography is the platform for that, but that's not, my calling isn't photography, it's making Jesus known. Photography is my tool and my skill that I can do to use that. And that hasn't changed either. So for me, the sweet spot is the convergence of storytelling and opportunities of evangelism and discipleship, ministering to non-believers and encouraging believers as well. So well, that was weird.
That was pretty cool.
I don't know how I did that. That's picture. Yeah, so this guy right here, Joel, he's a videographer for AIA, our athlete ministry. He also happens to be an Olympic level race walker. You know those guys that move their hips because they're not allowed to lift their feet off the ground? So he's the legitimate athlete. Like when he wears Team USA, he's actually Team USA. He didn't make the Olympics, but I always thought that was so cool that he's an actual athlete and a missionary. So the iconic pair of shots. So in light of this storyline, over my career, I've had the unique opportunity to minister in a lot of different ministries within Cru. I've always done that. So what I'm kind of doing now is I'm sort of like a free agent, like within Cru. We're large enough that there's a ton of communication needs within Cru. And so that's what I've been doing. We call them stakeholders. They're basically just ministries within Cru. I've been going to them and saying, how can I serve you? And then I'm getting opportunities to travel and to communicate for their specific needs within Cru. So like, for instance, I was in Rio de Janeiro with our fund development team this last spring. The fund development's a big passion of mine because we're raising money to resource our frontline staff in Africa, the Middle East. This is Latin America because we're kind of trying to shift a little bit. There's huge needs in all over the world, but Latin America is an area that we're trying to grow in. So I went down there to capture content, photos, videos, so that they can raise tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring in Bibles and other resources. And so that's very exciting for me. It's not as glamorous from the publication perspective because I don't get the platform of, the photos will go into donor reports and things like that. They're not quite as fun for me to see them, but I mean, the work is still very valuable. So here's an example. We have a lot of digital use and a lot of print use. So I think I counted like 70 times my photos from Zambia have been used in the last 12 months on social media, different times to raise awareness. I say the give, go, grow, give of your money and time, grow in your relationship with Christ, and go into the mission field. So those are kind of the three areas that I help to resource. So also in the spring, I had the great opportunity to travel to Central America, to Panama and Guatemala with Filter of Hope, a partner ministry of Cru that delivers clean water through these $30 filters that give about 100,000 gallons of water over 10 years. So it's a phenomenal cost benefit as far as that. But I went with a group of Greek students, not the feta cheese, but the sorority Greek. So you get that? Okay.
Yes.
And so I went with, we had 600 Greek students just from the University of Arkansas, okay? And Greek students are not known for their like mature, spiritual, giving of your time in spring break, right? But these students were on fire for Christ. They were sharing the gospel every day, multiple times a day, through these water filtration process. And we would use dirty water and clean water as analogies for being spiritually cleansed. And it was really interesting because they would, for good works on the clean water, they'd pour a little bit of clean water and say, this is our good deeds, this is helping the poor. And then they'd say, oops, I sinned, and they'd pour some dirty water, and all the clean water is immediately dirty, right? And so just really great visuals for what Christ does when he redeems us, that it's a gift, it's not something we earn, right? So anyways, that was a really fun opportunity. And again, that convergence where I had some really great opportunities to come alongside the students and help them minister. For instance, this lady, she had her husband, they were kicked out, they were extorted in their town, so they moved out of town, extorted as like pastors for money. Then they moved out of town, and then her husband's parents talked him into taking all their money and property and just leaving her and the kids, right? And then we come in, and college students, to minister to her, and these young adults were amazing how they handled with such a difficult situation. But I was able to step in and kind of steer the conversation in places where they weren't really prepared to handle that, So I try to get animals in my photos whenever I can, and it always makes them more interesting. So recently, I was able to pitch this story for our crew annual report, and they were very excited because the content's packaged. I do video interviews, transcribe them, and then we write it out and do an article and put it in an annual report, and it's done, right? So, my goal is even internally to use my content to get as much exposure as I can for God's glory, and so that's what they're doing. They're turning this story into, that shot probably won't make it, but. So here's some of the Greek students. We also had a police escort the entire time we were in Panama. There was heavily armed police officers around us on bikes like all day long, and we got to know them and gave them Bibles and played soccer with them and things like that. So that was really fun. But they were really serious about us not getting kidnapped. Like, that would be really bad PR for them. And we know the whole Panama Canal thing with Trump, so they were all about making sure that we were safe, which is interesting, and a little scary, I guess, too. This is a story that we're actually going to focus on for the annual report. So moving forward a little bit, also this summer I had the opportunity, so Bridges International Student Ministry is my side ministry that I do when I'm not traveling. I serve with University of Central Florida. We have students that come from all over the globe, a lot of Middle Eastern, a lot of East Asia. We've had a lot more students from China in the past than we do now, but we've seen a lot of fruit from the East Asian ministry. But the Bridges National Ministry asked me to go to Berkeley this summer to cover their summer mission there. It was a 4-day boot camp where we trained international students to go to Berkeley and learn how to share the gospel so they could take it back to their campus and share there. And so again, I was there photographing, videotaping, gathering interviews, and coming alongside the students with an opportunity to share the gospel alongside them. And this is the cover story for the Bridges annual report this year, which is exciting. So, and I think I have a picture of that in there. Oh, I did it again. Okay. This kind of reminds me of that, like Wakanda, if you guys have seen the Marvel movie, with anyways. Maybe wrong audience, I guess. I'm not a big Marvel guy myself, but most people have heard of, you know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Jenna does too, I think. Marvels? No? Okay. She's like, I'm a little too mature for that. So.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was really interesting. This was, they asked me to focus on Africans specifically. And so I followed around with these 2 Africans from Nigeria, and they met this young man who was on campus for internship or a job, but he went to Stanford. So he was on the Berkeley campus, went to Stanford. Well, this gal, she's a Stanford student. And so that was a really cool God coincidence, that to have that. And so we were able to minister to him. He'd been watching YouTube videos about creation versus evolution. And so we were able to step in and share with him and encourage him. And at one point they were quoting the Bible and talking about the Bible, and he kind of stopped him politely. He was very polite. He said, I appreciate you saying that, but for someone like me, I don't necessarily believe in the Bible or God. And so I was able to kind of step in and say, let's back up a second here. Let's back the train up a little bit and start from your question about that. Like, okay, is God real? So that was, good for them to kind of see that in practice. The name of the ministry is Bridges, and we're in the San Francisco Bay Area. It was a very natural thing for me. So they're going to run a bridge photo for the Bridges annual report. So, here's the cover that's coming out about that. So. And then also this summer we had our Crew 25, the annual gathering. Tom is familiar with that, and we used to call it CSU because we met at CSU for 40 years in Colorado. Now we're in the beautiful city of Milwaukee, downtown. But we were there with all 5,000 or so Cru staff members gathering to worship the Lord and kind of unite ourselves in ministry and strategy and be of one mind. And I was asked to, as part of the photo team, to document that. We had 12 photographers working, most of them much harder than I did because they're younger. I get a little bit of that seniority where I don't have to stay up till 2 a.m. editing photos and stuff. But to document that, which was really exciting. And we had a big event at the Milwaukee Bucks right outside the arena, and I met this photographer who worked for the Bucks, and we struck up a conversation. He was a new believer, and so I got to encourage him. But I was thinking, it was really cool how the Lord, here we have like thousands of professional missionaries all gathered in there, and I wondered if anyone else had talked to him, you know what I mean, as an outsider who was there. So that was really special. So here's our photo team. So this guy right here, that's my boss of 23 years, Guy Gerard. And he called me Saturday to let me know that he's retiring in 3 weeks. So again, another change in my life to have my team leader and friend, announce a retirement, and then how that sort of changed. If you've served and worked under someone for decades, it's kind of dramatic, to have that change. So again, just seeing what the Lord has in store for our team and who's jockeying for his position next. So, okay, so now I'm going to move on to some local bridges opportunities. So, I'll follow the photos here. So first, so you guys know, ever since the death of Charlie Kirk, there's been revival in the U.S. with our young people on college campuses. Maybe you don't know that, but if you're on social media, you might see that kind of stuff happening, and that's certainly true in Central Florida. We're just seeing a lot of younger people really kind of draw a line in the sand spiritually or be more bold. We were at BJ's Pizza the other night, and this young man had a Jesus t-shirt on, a scripture on the back, and I stopped him and talked to him, and he said, yeah, ever since what happened to Charlie Kirk, he said, I just feel like I want to be more bold and intentional about my faith, and so I was like, amen, that's awesome. So at the University of Central Florida, we have a very large Cru presence, which is different than Bridges. Bridges is international students. Cru is just Cru. It's like mostly American students. And we had an outreach, holy hot dog outreach, where we gave away 1,000 hot dogs in about an hour and a half. And among just a total debauchery situation, beer pong, they're just drinking and partying, which I don't totally understand why the university allows this on campus, but that's what they do. So it's a tailgating event. But we handed out 1,000 hot dogs as a way to introduce them to Cru, to invite them to the ministry. And we have a lot of cool kids that come to the Cru, so it's like, where the cool kids go, the other young adults want to go there too. So our first weekly meeting, we had 600 students come, which is really, really awesome. So here's just a couple of pictures of this. And, people can write about these things, but I think the photos really help to tell the story, right? In a way that words don't always do that. I'm not sure if you can see it in the photo. If this was like 4-dimensional or something, I don't know, you'd see the sweat, but it's very hot there. So if you've not spent any time in the summer in Florida, then you should, just so you understand my pain a little bit. So, and this is like September, but it doesn't cool down until never, but more like mid-November. So, yeah. So when I see a guy painted in all gold as a journalist, I'm like, I gotta document that. So that's what I do. I just try to get in there and show, try to make interesting photos that way. Okay, so now we're moving on to the Bridges UCF ministry. A couple weeks ago, we took students to St. Augustine, which is the historical town that Ponce de Leon discovered and thought he was looking for the Fountain of Youth there, which he did not find. But we took a group of students there as an outreach because we're a friendship-based ministry. So the more time we spend with students, the more we have opportunities to share with them. But this was my carload here, minus the Sam from Africa. So I had students from Japan, Korea, and China. And it was very interesting. I mean, I don't always have great spiritual conversations in my car. It just depends on the students and what their temperament is. But after some small talk about cars and food and things like that, the Lord just opened the door for me to have a very intense hour-and-a-half conversation, mainly with the Chinese student who'd been going to church with some Christian Chinese. So like I said before, where the Lord has really been working in the Chinese. We kind of have like a separate Chinese track in Bridges. Just in the past, we've had like 10-to-1 Chinese students over others, but recently the state of Florida has stopped allowing Chinese university students to come because of spying issues that we've had and things like that. So, but it was really great because he was an agnostic, and I was able to, using kind of the strategies that I use, which is working on creation versus evolution. So I always start with an intellectual angle, typically with the students, and kind of work through a grid of, is God real? Like, does he exist, right? And that could be a very big existential conversation. But we kind of work through that from a intellectual and a heart issue as well. And then from there to, if he is real, then, what does he want? Like, what kind of relationship does he want to have with me? What's the reason that I would want to have a relationship with him? And then finally, what is the purpose of that, or what's the end result of that after that? So, what do I have to gain from it? To be honest, like for the students, and it was great because we started intellectually and then worked our way through to the, kind of the tasty fruit of the gospel. It's like, okay, let's assume that God is real and his son Jesus Christ is real, then what does this mean for your life? And they were really interested in kind of that idea of finding purpose in greater than themselves and stuff. So it's just a good introduction. With these students, it usually, as most people, it takes multiple points of contact with them to broach that, but it was really interesting because Sam, he's from Africa, and in his mind, he can't even believe someone would not believe in God, right? I mean, it just is like, what? Mm-hmm. So I said, Sam, let me introduce you to my friend over here. So I kind of said, okay, Sam, you take over and let's see what you can do to talk to him. And it was a whole different just dialogue, right? Because Sam is an international student, he's a believer, and he's younger as well. So it was fun to tag team on that. So, and I will take some questions, by the way, at the end, like if you have some. I know I'm saying a lot, but here's just a couple more images on Chick-fil-A every year donates sometimes 100 or 200 gift cards for us to give away to the students. Jenna would love that. She's a Chick-fil-A fan. But it's a great touch point for the students to, they love food, they need to eat, so we give them those. And another ministry opportunity for me, I am very passionate about pickleball. It's become my obsession's maybe a strong word, but I love it. I absolutely love it. I played tennis for 40 years. I gave it up. I haven't, I feel like I'm like a recovering, tennis. Hi, I'm Ted. I'm a recovering tennis player. But I gave up tennis for pickleball, and I play a couple times a week. But it's really wonderful because it not only gives me an opportunity for fun and activity, being athletic and staying in shape, but it's a very social sport. You always change partners all the time. There's like 30 to 50 people gather where I play. And so it just offers tons of spiritual opportunities and conversations, both with non-believers and with young believers. I'll meet there. A lot of young people, a lot of students are playing there. And I met this one gal that was having an apologetic conversation with someone, proving the truths of Christianity. And so I introduced myself, and she was just really on fire for the Lord. This is Reese here. He's a Chinese. I met him at our Cru event. He was the national director of China for Cru. He's now in Florida raising support to join the U.S. ministry. So he and I have been playing pickleball together and tag teaming in our outreach. And he's way more bold than I am for the gospel, and I think it's partly because he lived in China. He knows what it's like, the cost it takes to be a believer. So, but that's been very exciting. And then there's Joel, the race walker, and Larry. That's my longest best friend in Florida there, Larry Stevens. So then some other best friends here too as well. And so my dad and I play pickleball together here when I'm in town. He's great. And there's another shot of Dad and I playing. So you're never too old to play pickleball. But my point of sharing that is not about pickleball, as much as I'd love all of you guys to play. But it's thinking about what areas of your life, because I don't interact with non-Christians a whole lot in my day-to-day life, but pickleball puts me in front of them, people that I don't know all the time. So what are those areas that you as well can do? So here's my parents. Some personal photos here. You can see a little bit of my life. This is my parents and I in Florida in front of my home there. So that palm tree is gone. I had it removed about 2 weeks ago, but that was quite a production. And my neighbor friend here, there's gators all over Central Florida. So if you haven't had a chance to come and visit, you really should. It's quite entertaining to meet those. And some more family pictures. I put this in here because of the talk I was talking about, the Making Your Life Count radio broadcast last year that turned into the radio show for 2,000 radio stations. And it's just been a kind of an exciting thing for me to have an opportunity to use different giftings in my life to encourage people, and having a radio platform. And I've never thought that I would have that, just kind of like that prayer of Jabez, like, Lord, expand my boundaries, whatever I can do for your kingdom. So, and if you haven't heard that, you can. It's in my emails, some of the emails I've sent out. And then I also did a talk at Grace Community Church last October, where it was actually my first time preaching or taking an entire service, and I got to do the same kind of extended talk on how to share your faith in practical ways. So if you'd like to hear that, you're more than welcome to watch that on YouTube. Last Super Bowl, I got the chance to do a testimonial presentation of the gospel using my dad's football story in college. This is high school uniform, but my dad was a college state champion in football, and so I was able to use his testimony of how he came to Christ to share with the international students, which was really exciting. So there's my dad in his high school uniform. So, my brother visiting Florida. So they call that the Emerald Cut. The water's not quite that green. There's a little Photoshop, but so. This is kind of my world at home. I'm single and I don't have my own family, but the Lord has been very gracious to bring me into a family in Florida that has become like my family. They've adopted me, and I'm Uncle Ted, or Juicy Boss is my nickname. But 3 teenage boys. We do tons of things together. They're very unique young men. They're into music and philosophy and gardening and tons of sports. They're very redneck, so they like to spend all their time outdoors if they can. So we go free diving and bike trail riding and kayaking and things like that. But it's been a really wonderful season for me to not only pour into their lives, but also to have a family that I'll bring over bags and bags of food. I love to cook and prepare and make things, and I'll just set up in their kitchen and I'll make dinner for them, and we just hang out all the time. So it's been a very fun and exciting season for me with that. So here we are fossil hunting, because that's a little hobby that I have. We go to the rivers and springs and fossil hunt, dig for shark's teeth and things like that. So that's the McGee family is their name. And yes, there could be alligators. There are alligators in there, but we have protocol on how to avoid them. So, and then this summer, got a chance to go do a little traveling with my parents as well, and it was exciting for me to get. I live in Florida. It's hot and flat, so anytime I get a chance to go up into the mountains is a great thing. And I always look for ministry opportunities there as well with family, especially from other cultures. That's really a natural progression for me. So my parents and I in Canada, and then first celebrating their anniversary together, and family Christmas, and an award that I won for Storylines first place. Again, just special, especially with Storylines being shut down. And my Paris story, I'll submit that next year for my final award opportunity with the Evangelical Press Association, which is like the Christian press association for all of the United States. Very prestigious. So, what's coming up? Anyone take a guess of where I might be going? Israel, yeah. So in December, I have the very unique opportunity to travel to Israel as an ambassador with a partnership between the Friends of Zion and the State of Israel. Have invited like 1,000 pastors and youth ministers to come to Israel to meet with and shake hands and do diplomatic things. So we'll be there, and they're paying for the whole thing. And it's really exciting historical opportunity. The State of Israel just wants to try to change the narratives of how Americans view them, right? Through the media and things like that. And so I'm going to be there as an ambassador for Israel and also obviously an ambassador for Christ as well. I've been to Israel once before, and they get really grumpy when you try to proselytize Jews, right? But they're happy to have you share the gospel with Palestinians that live in Israel. There's a lot of Palestinians, obviously we know that, yeah. So, but I'm just looking forward to the opportunity. I think it's like I said, it's a historical opportunity. We're going to be meeting with families from October 7th. We're going to be meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu as a group. I mean, there's 1,000 of us, I guess. So I don't know that I'll get to shake his hand, but I'm very thrilled about this opportunity. I love the Middle East. I love ministering there. I love the food and the exoticness of it, and just sharing Christ in those cultures. And I do it at home at UCF with the international students who come from Jordan and Qatar and Dubai and Iran, all over. So I meet photographers from other countries and cultures. It's always fun. Gosh, I'm a little younger there, aren't I?
I said so.
Yeah. And so this photo just represents that in the end of December, over New Year's Eve, I'll be going to the Bridges Conference in Denver, the Vision Conference. We'll have about 1,000 students from Bridges all over the U.S. that'll come. We'll have tracks for East Asia, we call them Children of Abraham for the Muslim students, and then the South Asian students, and then just the normal track, which is everyone else. And I'm really excited about that. They've invited me to come photograph and document, but of course it'll be ministry the whole time for me as well. So as the sun sets on my talk, let's stay connected, which we are. So, yeah, but I'm really grateful for your partnership and your prayer, your giving, your generosity, and I'm so glad you guys are all here today. And we're going to do a quick raffle, but are there any questions or comments? I know that was a lot of information flowing at you, so